What's up, podcast? Welcome to episode 17 of the podcast. I'm here with my boy, Joe Badaczewski, and I am so happy to have you back on, Joe. You're the man. We always have awesome conversations, awesome topics, really fun stuff to talk about. So before we jump into the whole episode, I want to give you a second to kind of tell the audience a little bit about yourself, where you come from, where you grew up, who the heck you are.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks again for having me, Matt. Like you said, man, it's always great to talk to you.
I feel like we're like brothers at this point, you know?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, me and you on tour, we were like a team right away.
Yeah.
I'm glad we get to continue to work together in any capacity, man.
Yeah, dude. And like, thank God for Zoom recording. So now I can talk to you more, record it, and show the masses. So we'll keep the private, crude conversations on the phone.
Yeah, that's for another time.
Yes. So,
but
please, go ahead.
But yeah, I'm glad to be here. So I guess a brief summary. I'm a trumpet player, somewhat of a composer, horn arranger. I've been a jack of all trades, playing with just any kind of style of music all around the world for the last 20 years about now. I was on cruise ships for a while. I was on tour with the Glenn Miller Orchestra as a soloist for a year. I did the Disney All-American College Band, playing jazz, playing happy music for kids.
Dude, I'm waiting for Disney to hire me. I've been waiting. They've gotten so many emails from me.
You would be you'd be a shoo-in, man. Although they just let a lot of people go on.
Dude, I know. Oh, my goal for my 30th birthday, I want to go to Disney World. It's not looking good. But sorry.
We'll see what happens, man. One can only hope. But yeah, I ended up in China singing, playing trumpet, playing percussion, playing some like synth piano in the house band at a couple really big casinos near Hong Kong, Macau, and Singapore. I've freelanced around LA, lived there for years, worked with a ton of different people there.
Dude, I forgot you lived there.
Yeah. Long Beach.
Totally forgot you lived there.
Long Beach, Pasadena, East Hollywood. Yeah, I mean, of course, the big thing is going on the road with you with the Killers, or Brandon Flowers' solo tour, which was an amazing experience. But in between, like playing with Pittsburgh Jazz Orchestra, working with Sean Jones, legendary trumpet player, playing with brass quintets, touring the country, doing music festivals, working with R&B artists, working with jam bands, playing big band music, playing small group music with people like Roger Humphreys, the like legendary drummer from the Cape Verdean Blues and Song for My Father by Horace Silver. Played with Ray Charles. I just try to do it all. I like the melting pot that is American music.
You've done a lot of shit.
Latin music.
You've done a lot, dude.
It's funk, whether it's jazz, whether it's with some classical music here and there. I just think music brings people together. I try to be involved in as many forms of it as possible. And I've also taught at 4 universities, so it's kind of a roundabout explanation, but
dude, that is quite a resume, I will say so. If I do say so myself, dude,
I'll let you say it.
Yeah, that is pretty sick. And when I first met you, I didn't know much. We got connected through a mutual musician, and now look at us now. Oh my God, who would have thought, dude? Seriously, chance by chance. How cool is that, man?
No, and it wasn't until after I met you that I found out that Paul, your former teacher from a long time ago, who recommended me for the Brandon Flowers thing. We even have the same birthday, so the universe is a mysterious place, man.
Dude, that's so. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
He's an old man. He's much older, like 2 years older. So
yeah.
Anyway,
dude, and now he's married, got kids. Jesus. What am I doing with my life? Dude, all right. Well, I'm really glad to have you here because obviously you are a badass musician. You're a cool dude, obviously, or I wouldn't be a friend. But I was really excited when we chatted about doing this and talking about this idea of, well, you told me about this, and I'm just gonna coin it myself. The body achieves what the mind believes. I think that's super cool. It is such a big kind of umbrella of things that we could talk about. But obviously, I want to get your interpretation of that from a musical standpoint first, and go from there. So, can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because this is a really cool topic, I think, for everyone, especially right now where the world is extremely uncertain and a little scary. Dude, please.
A lot of time to either improve ourselves or sit around doing a lot of thinking and letting negativity in. So it's a choice right now.
Dude, that's been happening to me so much. Like I have been, if I'm not shedding, if I'm not trying to get some gigs, or if I'm not trying to get on a project and I'm sitting, or at the end of the night after I've sent out all these emails, or I've practiced a bunch, or I've been writing or whatever, or doing a podcast or whatever, I'm like, man, that's when the negativity sits in, when I'm alone in my thoughts and I'm like, oh man, I should be doing this, but there's no more of this to do. My brain's fried,
Yeah. This uncertainty and relative solitude a lot of us are in is just an amplifier for some of that, some of those negative tendencies that everybody has. So, but that's kind of what got me to this topic, because, and I'm sure we'll go all over the place, and I'll try to stay on topic. But another little, just to give the listeners a reason why I brought this up. I went into college as somebody with a lot of technical skill on the trumpet, and was told, you have no physical issues, you can do anything physically that you'd be expected to in a professional career. We just need to refine it. But I was very self-conscious. A lot of, technical skill and abilities you have when you're young, you don't think about very much.
Yeah, dude, I stay self-conscious. I grew up self-conscious and unsure if I was ever good enough musically, and I stay self-conscious.
And that's what I'm getting at. Yeah. When music was just a fun thing in high school, and all I did was listen to records all the time, and I spent a lot of time just trying to imitate what I heard on the records because I love the records.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about, it's going to be hard to execute this thing he's doing, or, I just was like, I'm going to try to do that, and I would figure it out. And I didn't really think is it possible to do that? I already knew it was possible because I was listening to it. So I never asked myself, how well, but it sounds hard, or am I going to be able to do that? I just did it. And then when I achieved a certain level of success, some honors bands and stuff like that in high school, playing with the funk band, getting play in Pittsburgh as a kid, going to play clubs, the pressure started to grow. And when I went to college and was told you'll be fine, I really doubted that. And the more I doubted that, the harder playing the trumpet got, the harder hearing chord changes got, which I was still pretty new at then. It just got harder and harder, and I expected it to get easier. And the more that I dwelled on whether things were possible, and maybe I don't have the right mouth for trumpet, maybe my teeth are shifting and that's going to cause problems in the future, blah, blah, blah. What if? The more I did that, the more hard and the more of a struggle it became. And then that started to manifest into actual physical difficulties on the horn that I'd never had.
Right. And it seems like people are encouraging you that you're going to be fine, but it's kind of in a little bit inside of you that you having this kind of self-doubt, I guess. Is that accurate?
I wanted to make sure that I was practicing everything the right way, or that
Sure.
my practice was going to lead to the right stuff in the future. And I don't know. I just became a total head case.
Right.
And despite, you know, sticking with it and getting to do gigs all over the place for a long time, that uneasiness has always stuck with me, no matter how much I practiced
Mm-hmm.
or didn't practice. Some of my best gigs, I was just like, you know, screw it. I'm not even going to, you know, warm up for this. I'm just going to go play because I play better when I'm not thinking, which is also
Yeah.
stupid.
No, but it's interesting that you say that too, and you know all the things that you're describing, because I've been there, and I'm sure everyone that's been a musician or any kind of creative field, like we've all kind of been there, especially with the self-doubt thing. And you know, I agree with you. Like a lot of music, a lot of it is really good when you're not thinking. It's kind of like that that idea of, okay, you know, you practice, then forget and just go play. But I understand the emotional side, because if you're thinking and you're overthinking and you're like, oh, am I gonna be good enough? Am I gonna be able to pull this off? You know, it could screw you up.
So yeah, and it's just I really just want to play and bring, you know, I want to feel confident that when I pick up the instrument, I know generally what to expect that day, so I
Mm-hmm.
can focus on the music and the audience and my bandmates, and that's really all I've wanted all these years. And teacher after teacher after teacher, from Dr. Chris Crummell at Youngstown State to my good friend Sean Jones when I was working with him in graduate school and playing with him a lot. These guys really, they did their best to introduce me to certain concepts of the embouchure and, you know, trumpet physicality, but really they just kept telling me, like, the more you think about this, the worse it's going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to just follow through with a certain routine on the day, on a daily basis. Get your emotions out of it. You know, don't expect that your great days are always going to be great and that your bad days are always going to be bad. Just sit down and do something consistent that hits various facets of the horn, and trust. And I was never able to do that.
Yeah, I understand
And
that.
so, although I practiced a lot, you know, over the years, there was always this: am I doing this right? Blah, blah. And I just, a lot of setbacks, a lot of growth setbacks, all kinds of stuff. So in this, right before the pandemic, um, you know, I had a breakup that caused me to, you know, it just, a lot of things happened that wasn't expecting. I had this
Sure.
breakup, so that was a really difficult thing to deal with. It made me sad, distracted. Then the pandemic happened, so then there's no gigs.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and I think, like many people, it forced me to reevaluate, like, who I was and what my goals were and what happiness on a daily basis is, and what I could do in this situation of this pandemic to like maybe use it as a time as for personal growth outside the pressures of needing to be running to 6 different gigs a week all over several states and driving, and like all that was out the window. So now I was really either confronted with growth or sitting there with this anxiety.
Right.
And I was lucky enough to get a gig playing at one of the biggest amusement parks in the country, Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And that was through a former student I had who told me about the gig, because I said I really need to get out of Pittsburgh, get a reset. It would just be nice to meet new people, play. I haven't been in an amusement park in a while. I know they're happy, positive environments. It's going to be a lot of enthusiastic, you know, younger people that are just happy to be there. I think being around that would be good, and I'm pretty sure the musicians are going to be badass. And in doing that, again, it was a gig where the music was fun, but not something that, you know, I was scared to play because I might mess it up.
Right.
So it was kind of a consistent thing with not as much pressure. And I found myself around really great trumpet players. There's a guy, Charlie Newberry from New Jersey, who was playing lead trumpet on our show and screaming like high Fs, Gs, A flats. I mean, this is trumpet nerd talk, but when you hear it, everybody loves that stuff.
Plus, I would just want to say, part of the reason I love you, Joe, is because in the midst of a pandemic, when we are going into the shit show of a pandemic, Joe got a gig. I don't know, bro.
No,
Good job. I mean, man, I'm out here. I'm like, man, how am I going to get gigs? I'm sending out messages, sending out emails, talking to the people I know. And Joe's like, yeah, I'm just going to get a gig. And let me just get another one. And let me just get another one. That's awesome, man.
I'm on contract too. Been playing with like a brass band outside for this fall. I have a gig in Florida coming up for a few days, and then I'm going to South Carolina with another brass quintet to play at another amusement park that's part of this chain. So, to make people happy, especially now when a lot of people are stuck at home, when they, get to go to a place that's open and get away from that for a day and, hear live music and stuff. This is one of the few places to do it. And I'm lucky that I found it.
Dude, no, we need it, man. Like, I think this is exactly the time where the world needs music.
It more than ever.
And
this is one of the few places, and I am lucky. But what I'm getting at is that I found myself with a mix of like, okay, I'm coming from this low place where I have a choice as to where I'm going to take my life at this point and music. And of course, this is all back to that self-doubt on the trumpet. That's where we're doing this jumping off point. And when I was talking to Charlie, the other trumpet player, I was like, how do you sound like that every single day? And he started talking about this famous trumpet teacher and this certain routine. It's William. His name is William Adam. He taught at the University of Indiana Bloomington for a long time. It's his students that you hear on the Earth, Wind, and Fire albums, arranging them and playing on them. It's his students that you hear on all your Pixar movies, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, like Independence Day, all these things.
So they're pretty good.
There's a whole thousands of trumpet players in the recording industry, symphonies, brass quintets, you name it, that have all kind of come through either his studio or studied with students of his. And Charlie said, like, this is what I do. You should try it. And in the past, I was told, and it's in the first. So I got this book by Charlie Davis, he's the guy you hear on Family Guy in the intro and stuff. I used to live in Long Beach with one of his students who tried to get me to do this practice routine. And I guess I just kept telling myself, I can't get through this. It's so long. It's doing certain things on the trumpet that I'm not very good at.
Sure.
I have all these other skills, but this is really hitting my weaknesses, and I would just give up, and I never stuck with it. But I had been in contact with this before. But the first thing and it should be noted, William Adam never wrote a book about this legendary routine that's caused so much music to happen that we've all heard. He never wrote a book because he wanted it to be flexible. But when I was in college and heard about this, I thought it was some kind of very dry routine. But Charlie Davis, who compiled a lot of materials that are kind of in line with what Mr. Adam taught, but he makes this statement at the beginning where it's a great deal of misunderstanding has arisen concerning the Adam method. First and foremost, the Adam method is not one inflexible approach that each student must mindlessly adhere to. Mr. Adams' use of the routine, which is generally based on Max Schlossberg's exercises, carefully addressed a particular student's individual playing concepts. The notion that the Adam method can be applied by mindless repetition of routine exercises is the single biggest obstacle to understanding his approach. And that is something
it's something you got to really focus on and work at to consciously be focused and essentially driven in a way. Yeah. Would you agree?
Well, I think I avoided this routine thing because I thought it was this mindless thing.
Right.
But when I discovered it, especially in talking to Charlie, who had studied with one of Mr. Adams' students and who was then passing that on to me. And in this book, which Charlie Davis compiled, the main essence of this book, the exercises are there, but it's the attitude thing that caught me.
Right.
And that really made a difference in the last month to where, like yesterday, I picked up the horn to practice. And for the first time, I would say since those early days of like blind confidence when I was 15,
yeah,
I felt like my body knew exactly what to do. And this is after about a month of applying a different mindset to a routine. So
wow,
I just thought that the knowledge in this book can relate to all of us, not just trumpet, but all of us in trying to improve at anything in life, really. So there's a lot of different things in here about psychology. And that's what I wanted to kind of get to, because I'm trying to paint a picture of a guy that's of me, somebody that's survived, that's always survived, but always felt like I never really figured the horn out enough to really go do the things I wanted to do with just like a calm happiness and confidence.
Yeah, like you don't want to just survive, you want to thrive, you want to excel, you don't want to just get by,
Right.
So
I don't want to feel like I'm on a gig like I hope I get through this. And it all, usually worked out. But I didn't feel just calm and collected. Like I know what to expect from the horn. And a lot of that is mindset. And God bless my teachers for putting up with me resisting basically having a hopeful attitude all those years of studying in college, right, and even in lessons afterwards. So yeah, I wanted to just read some of these quotes from this book.
Yeah, dude, please. I think that would be really helpful. I know it'd be helpful for me because I totally understand. And I didn't know, to be honest, and maybe this is ignorance, but I didn't know that there was a book that could help you guide you mentally through all this and essentially building a firm structure to stand on mentally going forward. So I think that's pretty cool. So please share away.
Yeah, and again, the progress that I've seen, which I actually believe in firmly for the first time in a long time, has come from like honestly diligent several hours of work a day. But it's the way that I've looked at it that's been different. Rather than embracing like any emotion that may arise in the moment of practice, like, oh man, my chops don't feel good today. Oh man, like, am I doing this right? Is it going to make me better? I don't feel good. It's probably going to be a bad day. I'm going to put the horn away. I haven't done that. I've said, like, regardless of how I feel, I'm going to do this series of exercises and I'm going to follow the advice that has been passed down in this book. And the first thing one of the first things in the foreword is, we are capable of one thing at a time with considerable ease. When we have to be concerned with two things at a time, playing becomes more difficult. And when we are confronted with three things, it just literally becomes impossible. If we keep our minds on a beautiful sound, on accelerating the air through the sound, on not forcing the sound, and forget the embouchure, many problems will disappear. And that's from a William Adam Clinic from Jose Mouth. So I think that alone, I just think there's a lot of power in those words.
Yeah.
Because what do we do often when we sit down to practice? We focus on the minutia of everything. For me, it's is the right side even with the left side of my mouth? How far up or down are my lips on my teeth? How far forward or back is my jaw? Where's my tongue? How much of a breath did I take? What's my posture? How am I holding the horn? Is there tension in my right shoulder? I could go on and on and on and on. Now, how impossible is it to just make a pretty sound when you're thinking of 100 different things that could go wrong, instead of thinking the one thing that you want to go right, which would be playing with a pretty sound?
Yeah. I think that's one of the best things one of the really good things that Paul taught me was, listen, you could play fast, you could look hip, you can, be whatever, but if you don't have a good sound, nobody's going to want to listen to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, back in graduate school when I was playing a lot with Roger Humphreys, because Sean Jones was his guy, but Sean was out with the Lincoln Center band. And there was another guy who, Dr. James Moore, who has recorded with Bob Minster and stuff, and he's like a fantastic soloist, like in the kind of a Kenny Garrett post-bop. Kenny Dorham, my bad, I'm thinking Paul and sax. Kenny Dorham, those guys were busy. So I kept getting called, and I was in way over my head. And Roger's bass player, Dwayne Dolphin, who tours with like the new JBs, like James Brown's band, and like Fred Wesley. And he was with Wynton Marsalis at the beginning of his career. He used to take me aside and give me like some pretty hard-nosed advice. And then one thing was, was like, man, it's just your sound, man. He's like, you're trying to play all these notes, but like, I didn't even buy one of them.
Right.
He's like, why don't you just play one of them pretty? You know, he would say stuff like that to me.
Dude,
And
that is like,
trying to
I
play
forget,
fast
like,
and fancy, and I didn't even have a core of a sound.
dude,
So,
like Clifford Brown, man. The dude, like, a bunch of his solos, one freaking note for a really long time, but it's that one note, it just sits so right, and it just sounds so intentional. It's like, oh, geez, man. I could listen to him literally play one note for like, 22, 24 bars and be like captivated. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
so, and that's a patience that I think we all discover as we get like out of our early days of playing. But uh, but yeah, I'm just saying when I sit down to work on this stuff, um, it's not important for me to feel good about what I'm doing that day. It's not important for me to feel like I know this is going to, provide progress, or at the end of the day, I'm going to be able to play more the way I want, or
Right.
I don't think like, oh, it's not going well, I'm going to fail, I'm not doing the right stuff. Like, I just don't think of any of those things. I just say, I'm going to do these exercises, focus on how the articulation at the beginning of the note is, so it rings clear and it's pretty sound, and I'm just going to follow through.
Right.
That's all I expect of myself. I don't expect like, and then I will be great and get all these gigs and everybody will love me and I'll get rich. And then at the end of this, my chops are gonna be blown out and I'm gonna be worse tomorrow because I'm practicing wrong. Those are, in the words of Scott Belk, who's a trumpet guru at the University of Cincinnati, whose books have been like acclaimed all across the world, and who's also a riot. I had a conversation with him when I was panicking about my chops about 2 months ago, where he described having emotions like that in your practice as basically just a load of crap. Like, those are just emotions. You
Right.
decide, well, I'm having a great day, I'm going to be the best ever, and I'm never going to have any problems. Or, well, I don't know if I'm practicing this right because I feel like crap and I'm probably doing the wrong stuff. Those are all just completely vapid, useless, inaccurate thoughts. Those are just things you're making up.
Yeah. And I think, to add to that, it's all you can really ask for, and especially practicing, you can't expect to sound good necessarily. All you're practicing because you want to get better, and you don't really focus necessarily on, oh man, I'm going to sit here alone in this practice room and sound like the best, musician that has ever lived. No, you're probably going to sit in that practice room and sound like shit because you're practicing the shit that you need to get better at. And I think the only thing that you can do without, and this is really hard, and I can say from my own self that this is really hard, is all you can do really is just bring your best self into that room. Try not to have many expectations, maybe know what you want to get done, but don't beat yourself up if it's not perfect within 2 hours of starting to shed the damn thing.
Well, all you need to do is just be present. Like, you just need to show up to the practice room and do it. And that is another thing Scott said on that conversation. Was, he's like, I like this idea of, he said people often talk about, well, their passion for playing or how disciplined they were when they practiced. And he said both of those things sound exhausting to me. Like passion, that could be here 1 second and gone the next.
Right.
Do you need to be required to be passionate to sit down and do your work, or show up to a gig on any given day when you're supposed to be there? Can you really lean on passion for that? Can you really lean on discipline either? Like, I'm going to make myself do this routine because it's what I'm supposed to do. And that also sounds exhausting. He said, but routine and consistency requires neither of those things.
100%.
It doesn't matter how I feel today. I'm going to do this series of things that I know is good on a, fundamentals sense on this instrument. I'm going to do them no matter what happens. And then I'm going to walk away and like let my body do whatever it needs to do to heal and adjust and And hopefully tomorrow's cool, but if not, I'm going to do it anyway.
Right. You know, I want to take that idea too.
Inspired. We don't need to be disciplined. We don't need to be inspired. We just need to do.
Yeah. And I think what you were starting out with, which I found really, really interesting, kind of, I think the beginning of your thought was, you know, bringing yourself to be present, of course, in the practice room, in, you know, whatever moment you're in. And so I wanted to have you kind of elaborate a little bit on the idea of being present. Because obviously, you know, outside of music, outside of work and all that good stuff, man, it's really hard to be present and really appreciate what's going on around you, what, you know, musically or just in life, in the world, man. I see myself taking it for granted all the time. I'll be working on something and you've got like 27 screens and your phone, and you know, or if you're at an event and you're just like trying to take pictures on your phone and not really paying attention to the thing, which you're never going to look at those pictures again anyway. So right. Like, you know, and in your head as well, being mentally present and appreciating it, not trying to make it something it's not. Right. I think that would be really cool to talk about. But I didn't tell you this part before we started this, but we have to take a quick break right now so I could put in some B-roll from the sponsor, which is Anchor, which is where we're hosting this platform. So let's roll the B-roll and we'll be right back.
Go for it.
Hey guys, quick word from our sponsor. If you haven't heard of Anchor, well, now's your chance. It's completely free. It's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit any podcast right from your phone or your computer. It's where I do all of my podcasting. Anchor distributes your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, many, many more outlets. I think it's like over 8 to 10. It's crazy. You can make money from your podcast, no minimum listenership. So you don't have to have like 10,000 followers to have your shot. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thanks, guys. We were having this idea of being present in the moment, so I know you wanted to kind of jump in before I cut you off a little bit. So please continue what you were saying.
Well, yeah. So you were asking about this idea of being present with like your practice.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting concept because there's a lot to be said for just, you know, getting into the practice room or wherever you're gonna be to try to accomplish something on your instrument that day. But also we have a choice as to what kind of presence we bring to that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can show up and have a general sense of anxiety and be present with that. We can come in arrogant and think like, today's going to be a good day. We can be present with that. But those kind of concepts are also kind of unrealistic and fleeting.
Sure.
But we can choose what kind of attitude we bring into a practice space. So we can sit down, remind ourselves, okay, I'm going to focus on just my sound. Now, I will be executing some stuff that gets maybe more technical or anything, but sound is my main goal, you know? And we can choose to say, like, no matter what happens, I'm still just going to execute, and I'm not going to allow anything too high or too low to creep in. But this, because the compilation of Charlie Davis is with this routine, which gets pretty difficult, there are just these little nice quotes thrown in, like here and there before exercises.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've been reading them and truly just trying to buy in to the idea in front of me and not look at the notes like, oh, these are hard, and now I'm obsessed with how my mouth feels. And
right.
Like I'm just reading something along the lines of, you know, obstacles are things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. So what do I think? You know, what would you think when you see that? Obstacles are things you see when you take your eyes off the goal.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think it could be. I agree, and I also can see that, you know, on your way to the goal, you may stumble on obstacles, but in the sense of practicing and your intent and being present, you could come across something that that is not working or bothering you in a way, and then you focus all your energy on, oh, that bothered me, and then you can't accomplish that goal.
That is exactly what I was thinking myself, and yeah, it reminds me of talking to my brother the other day, who said, like, we were talking about some of these ideas, and he said, well, yeah, like if you're driving down the road and you're staring at like this tree on your right, you're just staring at the tree and not the road, thinking, I don't want to hit the tree. Right. You're not looking at the road anymore, are you? Like,
right. You're freaking out about the tree.
So you're not looking where you're hoping to go. You're just looking at this thing that you might run into. And then, I mean, in all likelihood, you're going to be swerving around the road. So it's a simple thought, but really, like, how many times do you sit down and try to do something, and rather than enjoying the most of it that goes well, you're like, oh, I always screw this one part up. Oh, I always feel like I can't execute this one part. I always mess that up. And then pretty soon your whole head is just conflagrated into this one error that might happen, and you're not thinking about what you want to have happen anymore.
Right.
You're just thinking about what could go wrong. And I mean, how powerful is that, just to change that one thought going into like your practice or anything really?
Dude, that's very powerful. And I think that kind of applies everywhere. You know, if you're thinking, what if, oh my God, you know, I could do this, I could do that, or, oh, I stumbled over, you know, even in real life and in, you know, when you're playing, oh, I stumbled over this one note. Oh, it ruined the whole thing. And I'm just going to focus that I played a B flat and it was a G major, or, you know what I mean? Like, if you stay fixed on that one thing that messed up, you're not going to be able to move on. That in life too. You know, you make a mistake, cool. Brush yourself off. It's a new day. Keep going. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I said this thing that I shouldn't have said. All right, cool. You know, fix it and move on, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, we start to become the sum of our failures and inadequacies, and that's all we see ourselves as. And then, I mean, that's really like self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
But self-fulfilling prophecy can also work the other way, when you're like, I'm doing my best and I expect that good things will happen because I'm genuinely doing my best.
Right.
But we can also think like, look what a screw up I am. I do all these things bad, and I'm afraid I'll do it again. And that could be life or just playing an instrument.
Right.
So these are all about choices, which is what Sean Jones was always telling me. Choices. Right. We can't, and there's a quote at the end that I'll get to that has a lot of these concepts in it that I'm mentioning now. But Sean was always just trying to remind me, hey, I'd be like, yeah, but this and this and this happened. And he's like, well, but you have a choice as to how you're going to deal with it. You have a choice as to how you feel about it. You have a choice as to how you're going to talk to me about it.
Uh-huh.
He's like, but you're acting powerless, like these things are happening to you.
And you have a choice, and you have so much control over how you navigate all of this, that sometimes, and I see it myself, you give too much power to the negative and you get stuck there. I know. I do it all the time, just like in people, like day to day with people. Oh, is this person mad at me? Did I say something wrong? Did I, so, and in practice, like, oh man, I can never hit that altissimo, whatever note. And then I get stuck in my head, and it gets in my head of like, oh, well, maybe you just can't do it. Right.
Which is inaccurate. That's just some idea you made up.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can do it. 100%.
It's just going to be true as long as you keep expecting failure from yourself.
Right. And then you're just going to be stuck, and you're going to be it's like a cyclical, thing of just being stuck.
Right. And then you're not opening any doors in your own mind for progress to walk in.
100%. You're blocking yourself off to what could be a really great opportunity, or a great progress, or the opportunity to better yourself.
And isn't that the thing with so many things in life? How people say like, well, that good things seem to have snuck up on them.
Right.
You don't see it coming. But in terms of getting better in an instrument, you're not going, or lifting weights or exercise, or, like things that should be tangible, they're not tangible in the day.
Right.
You ever worked out a while and you're, or practiced a lot and you're like, I don't think I sound much better. And then you see somebody you haven't seen in like 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, man, have you been exercising or have you been practicing? Like, and you don't realize it because it's incremental to you.
Right.
So we have to be patient in that we're not going to realize it. And it's only in the letting go of our expectation that eventually one day you may just do something and you're like, wow, like I forgot I used to think that was hard.
Right.
But if we're thinking about every day, like, what am I, blah, 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 like
you're just not going to get anywhere. You're never going to improve. You're never going to get better. So man, it definitely lends itself to being present. And I think, realizing that, those stumbling blocks are out there, those distractions are out there that kind of take your mind off the goal or take your eyes off the goal. I think that ties a lot into being present and appreciating each moment for what it is, musically, and just taking it in. And like we were talking when we were talking on the phone yesterday, I think it was yesterday, or you're saying, we were kind of talking about the tour and, letting that opportunity and those moments kind of wash over you and just taking it in. Because, you and I, we both were like, oh man, we can make sure this part is perfect. We got to make sure, do we get the moves on that song? Or like, does Brandon think we sound good? Or let's write these horn parts because they want them for that freaking TV show we did.
Yeah.
So like,
and then we were arguing over like these small rhythms because both of us wanted to like please
be hip.
And it was like, would anybody have noticed if we'd done it either different way? Like that was just anxiety, which brings me to, there's another quote here. Okay. So it says, it's another William Adam quote. Never get angry with yourself and never try to go so fast that anxiety is created. If you do those things, you are actually practicing being anxious and upset when playing. Of course, that is how you will feel emotionally when you play, if that is how you practice. Relax. It is supposed to be fun. We don't work music. We play music.
Dude, that's a good quote, man. I like that a lot.
I mean, how many gigs have I been on where I was prepared and everything, but in my practice, I was just like, okay, practice all this stuff so you don't screw it up on the gig. And then I'm on the gig and I'm like, now don't screw it up. And all I can think about is don't screw it up,
not actually playing.
And I'm like sweating. And why? It's because I practiced being that way.
Right.
I didn't say like, I'm going to work on this stuff. What happens on the gig happens on the gig, but I'm going to do my part and then I'm going to get some sleep at night. Like,
Right.
I just thought that is, I laugh when I read some of this stuff.
Right.
I'm like, man, in all these years, I thought it was crazy. Because I'm like, I'm practicing. Why am I still anxious? Well, I was anxious as hell in the practice room. Right.
Dude, yeah, it's exactly practice how you're going to go play. That's, on point.
But we often talk about the execution. We don't necessarily talk about what attitude we're practicing in the practice room.
Right.
Are we practicing being calm? Are we practicing having fun and enjoying it? Or are we waiting for some other time to enjoy what we're doing?
Yeah. Like, you could enjoy being, you can enjoy the practicing and shedding and getting better. I know it is frustrating to take the time to get better at a thing that you're not good at, but like there is some sort of enjoyment and there's a level of feeling achieved when you get better at the thing. And instead of, which it's harder said than done, but not getting so stressed when you're kind of like learning and trying to get better at something. It's again, easier said than done, but.
Right. But what's also empowering is not even getting better. Necessarily, it's the idea that you don't need to get better to feel empowered.
Right.
You can just say, I felt like crap today, I didn't play the way I wanted, but I still did all my work.
Right.
You know?
Right.
That was almost more freeing than saying, like, I did this and I achieved this result. It's like, I did this and I didn't achieve any result, but I did anyway.
100%.
You know, because again, that growth in the process of trying to get better, you might get worse for a while.
Sure.
My friend Charlie said that. We were doing that routine, and the first time we did that routine together, which I had done before, but not with like a more open mind. And Charlie was playing again stuff on the trumpet that's you know, you hear very few people able to do. And I was following along with him, and I was doing it as well. And I was like, wow, like I'm going to do this every day. And like the very next day, I couldn't do it, and the day after that, and then like the next week, I did some of that, like screaming high notes all the way down to the low register with a nice sound. And then so I've achieved like moments where it worked, and then whole weeks where I couldn't do it at all. And he was like, yeah, that's part of this. And he just kind of was like, but let's move on and keep going. And I was like, okay.
Right. Jeez.
Like, you're going to hit a wall. Yeah. It's like, you know, you'll see growth for like a few weeks. And like a lot of people talk about this, like you'll see growth doing the Adam routine consistently. And then all of a sudden you'll be worse, or you'll hit a wall. You won't be able to do any more.
Right.
And he was like, but that doesn't matter. And how liberating was that to hear, you know?
Right.
It's funny. Here's another quote that kind of goes right in line with that. It says, "Oh hell, I could teach a monkey to play trumpet if I could get him to believe in himself."
Huh.
And then there's a picture of a monkey with making like a trumpet embouchure.
That's awesome, dude. It's true. If you can believe in yourself that you can achieve it, then you can do it. You know, it's kind of, I mean, I use Walt Disney quotes often because I love Walt Disney. Say what you will about Walt Disney.
Hey, man.
But like, if you can dream it, you can do it, bro. If you can do it, man. If you set your mind to it and you work hard, like you can achieve anything.
Right. And what, you know, if I used to bear this, you know, attitude of like, you know, what if I never be good enough, and like I'm not good enough, and I you know, I'm not worthy of playing with so and so because I'm not good enough, and like, you know, blah blah blah. I used to bear all that like some kind of like noble cross, but it's pretty dumb to spend all your time like telling yourself that you're not worthy, instead of like saying, I really would love to go make music at, you know, whatever your dream is. You know,
right.
Whether it's music or not, I guess, you know, why are we thinking about the ways we can fail instead of what we're hoping will happen?
Right.
You know, here's another one. It says, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is, we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes.
Huh. Damn. I like that. Actually really reminds me of that quote, or that kind of conversation of a little kid telling his father, I'm sick of being poor. And the father says, we're not poor. Poor is a mentality.
Mm-hmm.
That hits the nail on the head, man. I think if you go out with whatever you're doing and have this attitude of positivity and love, and that you're going to be successful and you're going to achieve what you want to achieve, it's so much better than the cynical, oh, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, what good is that doing?
Right. It's only bringing you back down in a black hole of not I don't like just not being successful?
My dad has this thing. It's I don't know whose quote this is, and I may be saying it wrong, but it's like something like hating somebody is like poisoning yourself and expecting them to die.
Uh-huh.
I It's something along those lines. When we tell ourselves all of these negative things, I mean, I don't know how you feel when you start telling yourself you can't do stuff, but I start to feel physically sick.
Yeah, and it's extremely discouraging. And at least for me, when I get discouraged and I feel like I can't do a thing and it's in my head that I can't do something, like I get just tired and
Yeah,
like worn out,
absolutely.
you know?
I'm like, I just want to nap. I just want to lie down. And then what happens then? And then you're like, oh, look at me. I'm so lazy. I'm just lying here. And then you feel worse. And then the day ends and you're still tired, but then you're restless because you didn't do anything and you can't sleep. And then you're just thinking
Right.
about,
And it's guilt
oh,
at
what do
that
I
point.
think I am? I didn't do anything today to better myself, you know?
100%. It's guilt. That's kind of what we were talking about earlier when I feel like I, you know, did all this work all day and then now it's time to like kind of wind down because you need to wind down at some point.
Right.
And then you have this guilt of like, oh, why am I winding down? Why do I get the opportunity to wind down? Like I feel like I didn't work hard enough, but I did because I can't fit, like my brain cannot process anymore.
Right.
You need that rest space, like, especially when you're like writing too, like, or, you know, practicing for hours and you're like, you know, it's getting better, but you need a second to step away and say, okay, and I'm going to come back.
Absolutely. And I think the mindset there is super important too. Like, so my routine here, I played 6 days a week in the summer, but for fall, they're only open on the weekends. So I play six like half-hour shows, and we probably walk about 8 or 9 miles in the course of doing that.
Jeez, you get your steps in at least.
Yeah. And we like I'm doing some like we have some choreography, and we're doing like I don't know, some of the choreography. I'm shaking my ass a good bit, and like my phone will think that I've gone up like 100 flights of stairs that day. It's kind of funny.
That's amazing.
It's just funny.
It's amazing.
But what I was going to say is like, so during the week, I said, well, I'm going to make it my job right now to practice and exercise. So I'm going to try to better myself mentally and physically during the week, as you know, that's going to be my 9 to 5. But there are times when I've been working out 5 days a week, practicing 5 hours a day, doing that show on the weekends over a 9-hour day, and then right back at it. And I'm looking at it like, well, you know, my off days for working out are the weekend during the shows. But my body doesn't seem to feel that way sometimes. And on Monday, I was like, I'm not going to do anything today. Like, you know, when you hold the trumpet up, when you just hold your arms out in front of you, your shoulders start to burn. When you do that for 6 30-minute shows, like it's kind of a workout, even though you're not at the
Hell
gym.
yeah, it is.
But I had to tell myself on Monday, like, you know, take a rest day then. Don't play your horn. And
isn't it so hard though? Like,
but like I had to allow myself to. I had to say, it's okay. Just relax. Don't think about I should be at the gym. I should be practicing. I'm really disciplined these days, and I really want to get better, and I should be doing those things. I'm like, you know, today I'm going to allow myself to relax, because otherwise you're not really getting that downtime you need. And then I think you're less effective when you go to do the stuff that you want to work at, like lifting. And like for me, it's been lifting and running and practicing. Like when I went to do those things yesterday, I felt refreshed to do it.
Sure.
But if I had sat around all day Monday feeling guilty, I don't think I would have been any more mentally refreshed. So I just think that's important to mention too, right?
Yeah.
Like even that downtime at the end of the day, it's not the time where you should be analyzing whether you accomplished enough that day. It's not the time when you should be trying to think about tomorrow. You should just we need to allow ourselves to have that downtime. As long as we're honest with the amount of time we are putting in on the things we're trying to work on.
Yeah. My most recent time of doing that and kind of winding down, I will always set my goal to, let me work until I can't work anymore. And then my reward is like X, Y, or Z. So
Right.
my most recent reward was having some wine and watching TV. Now I had forgotten that night was the first presidential debate. And let me tell you, that shit was not relaxing.
That was not very relaxing.
I was like, man, this is not a reward.
No.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It is crazy. And we won't talk about politics, but Jesus, that was like, I should have just kept working. I should have just kept working.
Change it.
Oh my God. But I felt like obligated as an American to watch it. You know what I mean? Like
I was at the gym for that, and I was like, I'm just gonna punish myself for being American right now. Like, I was doing like battle ropes, and I was like, just work harder. Like, it's like,
yeah, dude. No, I saw that Instagram post. I was like, damn, Joe, killing it, dude.
Yeah, well.
But I want to get.
That's one of those gyms, man. That everybody there is like a dedicated weightlifter. For the I would say 85% of the people that are there are like weightlifters.
No, like where you are, like where
the gym I go to.
Okay.
Nearby,
man.
Everybody's like 250 pounds, So like, I went from 170 to 180, and I was like, yeah, I'm feeling good about it. But every time I go to that gym, I'm like, dude, you look like Gumby, man.
Dude, yes, I understand. So yeah, dude. So let me get your last couple thoughts here on being present and focused, because I know we're kind of running low on time a little bit. But give me some final thoughts. How do you think that has this transitioned for you into general life in general, or are you just focusing it in the practice room and relating it to trumpet? How are you? Is it affecting anywhere else?
I think that I have lived with anxiety. I know that I've lived with anxiety to the extreme, as long as I can remember, like literally as long as I can actually remember as a human. And I often allow those feelings to override what I did on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
And I think with some of the events that I've experienced in the past couple of years, I realized, like, well, look where just following emotions without taking charge of what I do, look where that gets me.
Sure.
I don't think there's a positive outcome for anybody in the long run when that's what we do. You're not always going to feel good. And when you feel good, you do good things. And when you feel not so good, you don't do very good things. We both know what side of the scale that's going to tip to in the long run, right?
Right.
It's much harder to be positive, and stay motivated. That takes choice. So if I'm just following the way my moods go, eventually I'm just going to feel crappy all the time. And then I'm not going to do the things that are the best things for me to do as a person. I'm not going to be as useful to those around me or as kind, probably. I'm not going to bring as much to the table, and I'm not going to feel good about it. So, again, with the pandemic especially, I was facing the same challenge we all are, which was, this is, a challenging time, and what decisions am I going to make as to who I'm going to be at the other side?
Yeah.
And again, since trumpet's been like a very, very important part of my life and career, it's my career. I just think that was a good starting point for me to work on my attitude.
Yeah.
To say that I want to be this kind of trumpet player, no matter if I'm excited about it that day or whether I feel like a failure or whatever. But I want to be better at it. And I think that attitude is just something that I also wanted to apply to life. I want to be a better person. Well, I feel like blah, 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 but I'm still going to go, do something healthy for myself. I'm still going to put good ideas in my head. I'm still going to accomplish tasks.
Dude, which is hard, man.
Even if
That's
I'm
really
feeling
hard to do.
a little down today. But like I kind of had enough of being a slave to negative emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not to say that I have conquered negative emotions. It just means that when I feel negative or when I feel angry or when I feel down, I'm still going to do the things I think are the right things.
Sure.
And over time, I think that breeds a sense of a little more stability and a little more of a feeling that you are in control, that I am in control of what's going to happen that day, and not say, well, I hope I feel good today because otherwise I'm going to be cranky jerk.
Right.
Yeah. I may feel like cranky and upset about certain things today, but I'm not going to act that out. I think little steps through practice with my horn and not allowing those emotions in, I'm also trying to just translate that to what kind of person I am. And I think that happens much like practice in my personal life. I think it happens in small steps. I don't think you realize if you're generally becoming a more positive person or what. You can't keep track of all those things on a day-to-day basis. It's small steps that change your attitude. It's small steps that led me to realize recently, like, wait, I haven't woken up dreading the day like I used to in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I've had moments of that almost every day, but I don't wake up with a total sense of dread like I used to. And I didn't even realize that had happened.
Wow.
And it was just because I would wake up, put some music on and say, what am I going to do today? How am I going to act? And I would be sitting there with this horrible feeling, but I'm like, but what am I going to do and how am I going to act? And, I just think that it's just about what teachers have said to me all this time and what wise people have been saying for years, that it's about choices and we make those determinations ourselves. We can't control what happens, but we can control how we react.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's important to fill your head. Like, again, I'm looking at this book. I mean, all these quotes I've been reading this whole podcast, it's really hilarious to me because they're surrounded by these like absurd trumpet exercises. I mean, some of them are hard, but some of them you look and read this nice peaceful quote and you're like, and then you look at what like you're expected to be playing, because this is a trumpet book and you're like, what is it? Like it's surrounded by these insane things, but then it's like, oh, be calm and hope and trust yourself. And but you don't realize like that I'm looking at this, reading it to you, and I'm like, I've been practicing this stuff and it hasn't felt like impossible or crazy. Right. And I'm like, but looking at it like an old feeling kind of just welled up just now of like, oh, that looks hard. And I like forgot about that. And I'm not saying amazing. It's all perfect, but like, again, little by little, I think I've just stopped being so convinced of failure. That's all. I have a long way to go with actually mastering these things we talked about today, but all I'm doing is just trying. And the only reason I mention this is because I have been a student that's been a pain in the ass to teachers, wouldn't believe or hope in what they told me to do. And they were just frustrated with me, like, because they really wanted me to be happy and I wouldn't follow through. And I've also had students that I see their frustration and I feel for that. I feel for the struggle that we all go through, because sure. I see it in my friends. I see it in professionals. I see it, in day-to-day life. Like everybody's trying their best and nobody really has a great idea of what the right thing is. And people, we all experience this anxiety and fear. And a lot of times the people that experience the most paralyzing fear are the ones that are trying the hardest. Yeah. So sometimes like when you try the hardest, you get not as far as when you didn't care as much. And And I just really feel for that, in the people around me and my students. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. I'm using my life as a frame for it. I think because I have experienced success, but also like had a really rough time, like having faith in the process and that things would happen. The positive things would happen. So I just think that I want to see, like, hopefully somebody listens to this and feels some sense of hope. Like, man, maybe if I change my attitude here, like that's going to turn around. I mean, so just putting these little things in your head every day as you're trying to accomplish these little tasks that inevitably are going to get you better.
Right.
Dude,
I think to add to that, and kind of a bit of a final point, but I'm not like a super religious cat or anything like that, but I think a really cool thing that I try to think about all the time is that idea of like walk in faith, not in sight, right?
Yeah.
Where, maybe you can't see what's going to happen, but you have faith that things are going to be okay. You're going to go and be positive and have a positive outlook, and you're going to be your best self every day, or you're going to try your best to be your best self every day.
Matt, the page I turned to right now, like that I've been sitting on this past minute, because I wanted to read this at the end. It's funny. We got some synchronicity going on. This is exactly what you just said. So I'm going to read this.
Please.
And I don't know, like some of these quotes, I feel kind of corny reading. Like it's like somebody that puts deep stuff on Facebook, and it's like quoting people, but they just have like a quote book. That's kind of how I feel right now.
No, it's all good.
This is by Dr. Christian D. Larson, and I apologize for not knowing who he is, but he sounds like a smart guy.
That's okay.
The quote is, promise yourself to be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind, to talk health, happiness, and prosperity to every person you meet, to make all of your friends feel that there is something in them, to look at the sunny side of everything and make your optimism come true, to think only the best, to work only for the best, and to expect only the best, to be just as enthusiastic about the success of others as you are about your own, to forget the mistakes of the past and press on to the greater achievements of the future, to wear a cheerful countenance at all times and give every living creature you meet a smile, to give so much time to the improvement of yourself that you have no time to criticize others, to be too large for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to permit the presence of trouble, to think well of yourself and to proclaim this fact to the world, not in loud words, but in great deeds, to live in faith that the whole world is on your side so long as you are true to the best that is in you.
Damn. That's going to be like my bio on my website. That's amazing. I love that, man.
Yeah, I love this stuff.
I love that, man. Dude, well, I want to bring you back on the show so we can have some more episodes and dive into this some more. If you'll come back, please, because this is such good conversation, such a cool topic to think about, because you and I can go on for hours talking, but we could really go on for days talking about this. Because it's so powerful, and there's just so many different applications for everything that we're talking about. So I think we got to come back and talk more about this. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this with me, because it's opened my eyes a lot. And,
Matt, you're one of my favorite people from the day I met you, man. And you inspire me with all the things you've done and continue to do. So I'm just glad to join you today, and I just hope that that I was concise enough in that some of this stuff will reach somebody and help put them in a good state of mind.
Well, you got me for sure. There were moments when we're talking and I'm like, man, I should probably comment on this, but I'm just listening and taking it in. So I appreciate it, man, and I think that the stuff that you brought up will definitely reach some people and of course encourage people to I think that there's a voice messaging aspect of Anchor, where if you listen to this podcast there, you can leave a voice message. So I would definitely invite everyone listening to do that. And then we can maybe address some of those questions in a future episode and come back and chat more about this.
Anytime. I mean, and you know, I can send you this, like the book that it's a trumpet, it's a trumpet book, but that's where I got all these quotes. I can give you a link to that in case anybody that wants to, you know where I got this stuff so they can look it up.
Dude, please shoot it over, and I will shed those exercises on tenor. So whatever. Dude, thank you so much for being a part of this again. You're the man, and I hope we'll definitely have you back on soon. I will have to coax you with coming to visit me here in New York soon.
Hey man, anytime, honestly. And I know we'll talk soon.
Joe Badaczewski, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.
Bye.
All right. Talk to you later.